So you can see the router table is finished here. I do need to shim a little bit because it's just catching a little bit, but it is good and it'll work well. And in this build that you're about to see on the rest of this video, you can see that I had some challenges and some obstacles and setbacks that I overcame, and hopefully this build video will help those that are doing something similar or this to overcome in their project. And if you look around at this garage a little bit, you can see that it is a little bit different than what you're going to see in the rest of this build video. And there's a reason for that. I can now, and I do have a shop under construction, more to come on that. When I bought this Grizzly, it already had a router table mounted into it, and the came with the plexiglass, and I was able to attach my router to it. But I have a Kreg router lift and a BORA router that I am going to put in here, so I'm going to take this opportunity to replace this. This, as you can see, yellow pine, and this looks like maybe a birch with wax on it. It doesn't flush here very well. It's not exactly level across here, so I'm going to take the opportunity to replace it, and I'm going to replace it with this HDO plywood. It's a very slick surface, so it won't take much to keep it waxed. It's an outdoor plywood that we have used on projects where it'll take some weather. It'll last well. It's also used for a form board, I believe. And I'm going to band it with this mahogany. So I've got my thickness planer hooked up, and I've got it on a finishing setting so that it will do a fine job. I've got all four edges actually with a finish plane to them. In the process of putting the banding around this piece of HDO and using 45s to fit this, I'm screwing it in right now because I put it together later. These screws will be the glue clamps, but they're also allowing me to get a good fit here as well. And then when I glue it together, after the glue dries, I'll take the screws out, drill a hole for a dowel, and insert a dowel and glue the dowel in. So the dowels that I put in the side here ended up being an issue. This is the piece I cut out because the dowel, you can see here where I can feel it right here where one of those dowels, you can see that right there. When I drilled the holes and went to fill glue and then pressed the dowels in, I believe I pressed them too much for this plywood, and it came, I got a hump in there, and I don't want to start off the router table with that. So I got onto a table saw and I cut that out, and then I cut a piece to insert into this frame. So the dowels are there, but they're not doing anything because this is simply glued in, and now I've got a good smooth surface to work with. Right now, to be able to use a pattern bit to route this out, so I'm double side tape on these pieces and then just stepping my way around, leaving that one so this one will go past like that once I get it taped in, and then I'll be able to use that as my guide for routing this out. Hopefully this will stay focused, but in order to set up a pattern bit, which I've already got it routed, but you push the pattern bit down to the surface that you want to route into, lock that in place, and then you got to set your depth gauge, which I'm going to turn it around this way, and you bring this in, hold that there, and adjust this depth gauge down to that surface. So then I know that I can push this router bit back out, or router, with the pattern bit in it, and go ahead and push it on down. And right now it is all the way down to the point where this is touching. I back this gauge out a little bit so that I can make some adjustments. But from there, then you can route around, and you can see that the pattern bit is down below the surface to the extent to where that the router still touches on the blocks taped in there, and then I can route that out. In order to give the router table a little more strength, I am putting a webbing in here, a waffle webbing, and these are fitting fairly tight, but I did a half lap joint, and so these will sit in and they're fairly tight. So this is one of those rare instances where I'm not so concerned about getting all of the glue cleaned out of these cavities because it's the underside. So what I'm doing is putting a piece on here that's a little less than this outer frame so that it pushes on the center only. And this double layer of Corian will help to spread the weight. That is quite a bit of weight on that. I debated about putting laminate on top of this after this got a little bit down, and no amount of weight on this thing was able to press this all the way down, so it didn't do what I intended to do, because as you can see here, there's a pretty good gap there. I'm not satisfied with that, so I am going to go back and sand this to get it to where it's more acceptable. And if it was a hump instead of a bowl, it'd be a little more usable, because with it being a bowl, I'm not going to get the full depth on the router bit as a board goes across, especially if it's long. But once you get to the tail end of the board, then it's going to be right on the table, whereas here it's going to be high in the middle. So I'm going to sand this and get it down, and I will cover this with a laminate. So I've gone across this table looking at the light, where the light is shining through, and where it's not, I have made these pencil marks on here so that I know where this is touching is where I've drawn the pencil marks. Where I can see light, I haven't drawn any. That way I know where to sand to try to get this more level. I am going to use this as the plastic laminate to cover my router table wing. And I will turn this over. It won't go that way, but it will this way. I've got a break there, but I'm going to allow a little bit of room for trim because I don't want to be too short. So I'm going to come back with a trim bit to trim this up. Growing up in my dad's cabinet shop, we would run this across a table saw to cut it each time. One thing I've learned from watching YouTube is to scribe this laminate. It's plastic laminate. Scribe it a few times, and that will allow you to snap it. And that's a very good line there. Now, I wouldn't necessarily have to scribe this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it while I'm here and not have that much extra that I have to be working with. It's not always about making the deep scribe the first cut, but doing it a few times and getting it there. And then just grabbing it where you're applying enough even pressure across, and it will snap. I'm going to roughly lay this down also and mark out where the center is, just so I'm not putting contact cement throughout this whole piece underneath here. And I'm gonna lay these side by side so I can begin prepping. I've got a squirrel cage fan down underneath here because I'm fixing to do contact cement. It's weld wood. You can buy these at the big box stores. And then I will put 2 coats on here. Get it smeared on and let that first coat set until it becomes tacky, where that you can put your finger down on it and it's not wet, not sticking to your finger, it's just tacky. Then you know it's ready for a second coat. And once the second coat goes on and it's also tacky, then you can glue them together. So here I'm adding a second coat, and as soon as it's tacky, then I can put the 2 together. All right, this is dry, tacky to the touch, so I use these dowels to help keep this off of it right away until I get ready to set it down, because as soon as this stuff touches, it's going to stick, and I need to make sure that I've got overlap everywhere so that I can come back and route it in place. Now, I've seen some start from the middle. I've always, growing up in my dad's cabinet shop, we always started from one end when we did laminate like this. And you start from, if you do it from the center, you gotta work your way out. If you do it from the one end, just work your way across. Taking a stick dowel out at a time. The dowels work better because they will roll also. When you're trying to get them loose, you can twist and they'll come a little better than say a square. But I do have some square ones on the end, and those work on the end because they're easy enough to get out. But I need to roll this side to side for ease of being able to hit this right, turning it so that I can go lengthwise. So I am going to break this video up into 2, and here's where I'm going to stop it now that I've got the laminate on, and call it a part 1. Stay tuned for part 2.